Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and whenever you may be watching. I am Misha Tuesday, the Mystic Hypnotist, and this is the Hypno-Energize 5-Day Challenge. Today is day 3 of the challenge, but don't worry if you haven't seen day 1 and 2 because although they are cumulative, they are also non-linear. That means it's less important to watch them in order than it is to do the exercises. So you can do them in any order. They are cumulative, so you add them together as you see them, but you can watch them in any order, so don't panic. In fact, rule number 1 is don't panic. So, day 3, well, let's just do a little recap. In day one, we talked about a morning routine, and I gave some ideas how you can start with a very brief action that you can do every morning first thing. And all of these tips are designed to be done in a minute or less because consistency over time is much more important than making a big change all at once. It's very difficult to make a big change all at once. It's relatively easy to make a teeny change, and once you have made a teeny change, you can begin to grow that change. That's why this challenge is all about starting with exercises, tricks, things that you can do in a minute or less. Now there are 5 of them, so it's going to add up to 5 minutes a day. But what I would say is, are you willing to give 5 minutes a day to improve your life, to make yourself more energized, more confident, more positive, more successful, more satisfied? I know I am. I do a lot more than 5 minutes a day, but I've been doing it for a while. So these are all short exercises, 1 minute or less. And today we are talking about generative journaling. Generative journaling. What do I mean by that? What is generative? Generative means it creates, it generates things. And I contrast this with reflective journaling, because when you say journaling, a lot of people think you mean keeping a diary. This is what happened today, and this is how I felt about it, and this is what she said, and it's not a diary. That would be reflective journaling. Reflective journaling is writing down the things that happen, your thoughts, your ideas, your events, the events of your day, how you felt about things, what your wishes are, and that sort of thing. That's reflective journaling. Generative journaling is where you're writing to create. And if you get really into this stuff, I'll just show it to you now. There's a lot more in this book than I'm going to say about it. Now I'm going to get you started. But if you want to really dive deep into generative journaling, I highly recommend Author Your Life. It's by my friend Laura Zeeland, and she is a writing guru. She is a published author, and she has this whole system of how to use generative journaling to maximum impact. And I do recommend that. She's given me a lot of great tips, and I will give you a few of them now today. So in generative journaling, you're journaling to create. And when we write a journal, we typically write in first person. I am this, I did that. It's I statements. It's very first person. And one of the major techniques that I got from Laura Zeeland, author of Author Your Life, is doing it in the third person. And there's a lot of reasons for this. When you do it in the third person, that's where I would write, Misha generates thousands of followers. Misha makes lots of money. Misha helps people solve their problems. Things that I want to have happen in the world. Misha has freedom to go on adventures with his family. These are all third-person statements, because I'm not saying I have freedom to go on adventures. I make more money. I this, that. I'm talking about myself as though I'm a character in a story. And what this does is it connects to the part of your brain that relates to narrative. Now, psychologists and scientists have known for a long time, and this is why you see it in sales a lot. In sales, people don't just tell you what they have to offer and what they are selling. They say, I had this client who came to me for insomnia, and we worked together, and it came out in this session that there were some things from the past that she had never dealt with, and it was contributing to her difficulty sleeping. And I tell this story of this person that makes it more real to you than if I just say I can work with people on insomnia. When you tell a story, it hooks into your mind better, because we've been doing it for thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of years around the campfire, ancestors upon ancestors, generations back, would tell stories about the hunt or about this or that, or just make up a story. And that's how fiction started, right? Somebody made up a story. The next night they're like, hey, tell that one you made up again. That was funny. Let's tell that story again. We're programmed, we're hardwired to relate to narrative. And that's why when you journal in the first person, it gets implanted deeper into the unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind often has, I would say always, has a very generative effect on our whole being. We see in the world a lot of times what we expect to see. It's called confirmation bias, which is a way that scientists use to explain away synchronicity, law of attraction stuff. Well, that's just confirmation bias. But we are evolved to have this capacity, to have this ability to see in the world what we expect to see, not necessarily what we want. You can't just say, I want this enough, it will happen. That's not exactly how it works. It's what you expect at a deep level, what you think is true about the world, your implicit assumptions, because you have millions, I forget the exact figure, but you have millions, let's say 1 million bits of information coming in per second. I think that's roughly close to what neuroscientists say now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you have like about 1 million, maybe even more than that, individual bits of information coming in through your senses every second. And here's what Saint Ebbinghaus, he's not really a saint, I call him Saint Ebbinghaus because I forget his first name. Ebbinghaus was a psychological researcher around the turn of the last century who measured how many bits of information can you be consciously aware of at once. How many digits of a long string of digits can you keep in your mind at one time, not in long-term memory, but right now in my mind. And he determined that it's roughly 7 plus or minus 2. Sometimes it might be closer to 5 or 6. Sometimes it might be closer to 8 or 9. But the average for a person at any given time is 7 pieces of information that you can hold in your mind. There's 1 million bits of information coming in every second. You can only be aware of about 7 of them. So you have a part of the brain that decides what's relevant. What am I going to show the executive ego, right? What am I going to show the conscious state? And it chooses the things that seem most relevant based on our experiences, our assumptions, our expectations. We literally see in the world reflected what our implicit biases and expectations are. That's why you see a news story, and I'm not going to get political here, but you see a news story come out, and one side says it means this, and this is horrible, how could you do that? And the other side says, no, it means this, and you're horrible, how could you do that? Same event. People's implicit biases, assumptions, beliefs, expectations shape how they are able to perceive that one event. And people fight about it like it's the objective truth. It is not the objective truth. And I'm going to anger people on both sides for saying that. It's not the objective truth. It is your interpretation of that event that is causing this conflict. That's as political as I'm ever going to get, hopefully, in my professional life. But we see in the world what we expect, which is why things like The Secret, things like Law of Attraction work. It's not because there's some magical spell that if you imagine a sports car in your driveway, one day you're going to wake up and boom, it's there. But if you have, whether you do a vision board or generative journaling, which is my preferred mode, a way that you condition yourself to create new expectations, create new assumptions, because another thing we'll talk about is how you change inwardly to reflect your outward expectations. So you change your implicit assumptions, you begin to see things in the world. So if I want a sports car, this is my go-to example, because I have this idea of someone with a vision board putting a Lamborghini on there and thinking, okay, I'm done. I pasted a picture to a piece of cardboard and I just have to sit back and wait for the Lamborghini to appear in my driveway. That is not how the law of attraction works. But if a Lamborghini is really your thing, you're like, I need to have a Lamborghini, and you put that Lamborghini on the vision board, your job isn't done. Your job is then, okay, how do I take one step today to walk towards that Lamborghini? What kind of person do I need to be to make that happen? And this, sometimes it's conscious, but most often it's more effective if you get it unconscious, which is what journaling in a narrative does. Gets it unconscious. That way you start to see opportunities, you start to behave in a way subtly. Remember, this is small changes over time. It's not going to happen overnight. Small changes over time to the point where You are a person who wears a suit instead of sweatpants to go live. You are a person who looks at things with a keen, discerning sense of, how is this opportunity going to benefit me? How can I bring value to my clients? How can I, and this becomes implicit assumption. So you don't have to be thinking it consciously, deciding every moment what to do, but it becomes part of your being, creating I don't know if I can call him my mentor. I did a mastermind group with James Tripp, very well-known hypnosis educator and coach, and he calls it creation from the inside out. So you create yourself. How you show up in the world changes your opportunities, changes the results that you get just by changing how you show up. And that is the power of generative journaling in a nutshell. It was bigger than a nutshell. It was watermelon sized. But that's what we're going to do for homework number 3. So I do want to talk a little bit more about the first person angle, because remember I contrasted third person. Misha gets a Lamborghini in his driveway. Misha goes on, I don't even know what the morning shows are anymore. I'm not a TV person, but Misha goes on all the morning shows to talk about his book. These are outward things that I can journal about in my narrative. Then what I do is I do my I am statements. And there's been debate in the the journaling, the generative writing community about third person versus first person. Laura Zeal, author of Your Life, advocates the third person technique. And when I was in the group with James Tripp, he was talking about I statements, and I brought this up. And what we came to was they serve different purposes, right? So the narrative, the third person stuff, is things that you want to happen in the world. Whether you think it's a magical force that's going to shower you with blessings, that's a great thought to have. Or whether you think it is going to give you these implicit assumptions that will make you work towards that on an unconscious level, have this unconscious drive that pushes you in that direction. Both of those things can be true, and both of those things are generated by the third person narrative. But when you come, that's for external stuff. When you come to the internals, confidence, power, and any kind of skill or ability that you want to cultivate inside yourself, that's what I move to. This is what I move to, the I am statement. So I start with my narrative, my third person. Misha gets this, Misha has that, Misha achieves these things that are outside. And then I think, what are the qualities that I need to get that? What are the qualities that I need to cultivate on the inside to facilitate those things? And it does get very mysterious. If you start doing this stuff, you can very easily go into the mindset of believing, wow, there is some spell or some cosmic force, because I don't even know, there's no direct chain of causality to I started this challenge, and I'm going to step up my game. I'm going to do this challenge. I'm going to create this conversation with the world. I'm launching a whole new venture. I'm launching a whole new individual group coaching session that I will talk about on day 5. And so I'm showing up with that attitude, and I'm getting calls from people booking me for hypnotherapy, who haven't even seen this. Like my calls for hypnotherapy have increased because I'm starting this other thing. There's no direct causality to it, but when you step up your game, when you create from the inside out, as James Tripp would say, you start seeing these shifts in the world that you can't always trace. What I did to create that is just, it seems like magic, and it very well may be. So I'm going to check in the comments, because I've been on a rant here, and James says, I like to think the Easter Bunny has my back. And James says, this sounds really helpful. Thanks, James, for that comment. If this is getting a little bit into chaos magic, which is a little bit way off the deep end, but in chaos magic, the Easter Bunny would be a very valid spiritual being that you could connect to and get some kind of benefits. Personally, I think if you want a lot of hard-boiled eggs and chocolate, the Easter Bunny would be an excellent deity to revere. But if you want, maybe the Easter Bunny in your universe is a martial artist who can follow you around. Maybe he's just always outside of your periphery, so you can never, if you turn, now he's there, now he's there, now he's there. He's invisible to everyone else. No one else can see him but you, James. But he's got your back. Literally, he's got your back. He's tight with the Matrix martial arts skills. Like he jumps up and he becomes slow motion. Everything becomes slow motion until he brings the smack down. The Easter Bunny definitely has your back. And thanks for getting me on that roll, because I do like to demonstrate. Actually, I was going to show you. Thanks, James, for once again non-linear causality. Gave me this tangent that brought me back to something that I wanted to talk about also. This is what I call my magic book. This is my generative journal. I have a regular journal, a day planner that I write. I have a meeting. I have, like this is my to-do list and stuff. That doesn't go in here. That goes in my mundane journal, my mundane day book, right? This is my magic book where I put my generative journaling. And it's not the only thing I do in here, but the bulk of it is my generative journaling. I also do dreams. In the morning I write down my dream images that I have on awakening. I do a little note on what parts of my morning routine. I have a big long morning routine. Sometimes I do a shorter version of it, because if I do the whole thing, it takes an hour. I don't always have an hour, and this subtly is permission for you. If you're doing a morning routine, it's way better for you to say, you know what, I'm gonna do. I'm late for work. I'm only gonna do 4 minutes of it today. Still do that 4 minutes. Way better than, you know what, I don't have time for that today at all, because it's consistent action over time that does the job. But so for my journal, I have, and this is a little bit of vulnerability. I'm letting you know my innermost thoughts here. Misha's following continues to increase. People love Misha's ideas and want more. Misha remembers his shower ideas about what to write in this book. That's the kind of third person stuff that I wrote on June 12th. And then when I go to my I am statements, what kind of person creates that? I am grateful for the attention. This is my I am statements now. I am grateful for the attention and feedback I get from my community. I am very grateful to you, everyone who's watching. Thank you. Be still and know that there are people who love my ideas and want more. I am that I am a great storyteller. Hear that from my kids all the time. Be still and know that I am a curiosity, a buzz creator. I am that I am powerful. I got that I am that I am phraseology ultimately from the Bible. Ahie, one of the names of God, literally means I am that I am. And that was something that James Tripp told me, that he often uses that construction for his I am statement. So I started experimenting with that. I am that I am free. I know what I want. Those are my main overall. I have the whole affirmation cycle, and we will probably talk about those in a minute. But the one that I just thought of from the Easter Bunny thing was where is that one? It was, I am determined when determination is needed, and whimsical when whimsy is needed. I saw that flipping through this morning, and James, when you talked about the Easter Bunny, you reminded me of that one, because I can be a very whimsical guy, but there are times, where you gotta be a little bit more, I don't like the word serious, but more sincere, more, determined, and, I don't know, on target. But that's not to discount the whimsy. This gets back into the yin-yang, which I talked about at greater length on day 2. So if you haven't seen day 2, do go back for that, because whimsy and seriousness or sincerity could be another 2 poles that you do that yin-yang dance with. You don't have to choose one or the other. So James says, beautiful vision. Caleb says, what's your Patreon? Is it Patreon? Patreon? I never quite know how to pronounce it. I don't have a Patreon, but maybe I should. You know what? If there's anybody else who wants me to have a Patreon, go ahead and pop it in the comments. Maybe I'll just start one. Who knows? And James says, Muggle Journal versus Magic Austin Food Journal. I think you typed Magic Journal, but Facebook automatically tagged Austin Food Journal for some reason, which is, could be a serendipitous thing. Maybe the Austin Food Journal has just the recipe we've all been looking for. Who knows? Magic does happen. And James says, powerful. Thank you so much for the comments, everyone. If depending on what channel you're watching this in, I may not see your comments live. So please do, please do get in the group. I have a group that I started. I was getting comments, just like I'm saying now. I was getting comments all over the place, on my Facebook page, my personal page, my YouTube, my Instagram, my I don't get a lot of comments on Twitter. I don't use Twitter that much, but my LinkedIn. So I'm getting all these comments all over the place, and I can't keep track of them all. I'm like, let's start a group. let's start a group to collect, everybody in one spot. It's a new group. I just started it, but please do help me grow that group. Come in there. We can talk about all these techniques at greater detail. You can see the link in the video description. Should be in the video description. 1 second here while I get that group up. It's called Hypno-Energize. You can search for it too. Hypno-Energize Personal Power Mastery Program. Personal Power Mastery Program. And I'm going to drop that link into the comments in case you're not there. Please do join the group, because we'll continue all this awesome, powerful inspiration offline. So, I will entertain questions if there are any questions so far. Please do pop them in the comments. And I know that a lot of people are going to be watching the replay because this is early for a lot of people. I specifically did not advertise a time for this because I do have audience all over the world. I do have people that have very different schedules, and it's not as important for you to watch it when it happens as it is to watch them one per day. And if you're watching the replay and this is your first one, I don't advise watching all. Don't binge them. Don't watch them all in one day. Watch one per day. Do that. Implement that one exercise for the next day, and then you'll add one exercise per day. Don't try to add all the exercises at once, because like I said, we want to start with small incremental changes and build from there. So that brings us to your homework for today, which is thus. I'm just making sure I have caught up on all my comments. Oh, nice. Caleb put in a link to a Peter Tosh video of a song called I Am That I Am. I do like Peter Tosh. I have not, maybe I have heard that song. I don't know it by title, so I will give that a listen later. Thanks for the share. And James says, Facebook revealed my secret. Your secret subscription to Austin Food Journal. That's hilarious. Okay, so your homework, should you choose to accept it. And I promise you're going to have to trust me on this, but I promise you, if you do these tricks, in this challenge, we have 5 tricks. All of them can be done in a minute or less, right? As you gain momentum, you're probably going to want to expand them. As your power increases, so does your responsibility. You got to take care of your inner work, your self-creation. But you can get started very easily with a very minimal time effort, the time investment. These 5 tricks, so a minute or less, that's 5 minutes or less a day that you can do to get yourself rolling, get yourself energized, get yourself ramping up to the next level, because who doesn't want to ramp up to the next level? So give yourself a commitment. Say out loud, I pledge to give these tricks at least 2 weeks. Let's say 14 days. I pledge to do these exercises 5 minutes or less a day for 14 days. If you don't see any positive increase to your energy level, your positivity level, your creativity, your flexibility, if you don't see some benefits after 14 days, you contact me directly and say, WTF Misha Tuesday, and we can do some troubleshooting. We're going to do that in the group when I do my, I'm not officially announcing yet, but when I do my small coaching group, we're going to have tons of individualized attention, tons of individual troubleshooting of what your exercises are, where you may be shooting yourself in the foot, how you can make it easier and more effective. That's all going to be coming up in the announcement on day 5. So your homework assignment is to do one of each. One third-person statement, one first-person statement. And it doesn't have to be, it can be in the morning. If you want to make that the one thing you do in the morning as your morning routine, feeding 2 birds with 1 scone, as PETA likes to say instead of the traditional version. You can feed 2 birds with 1 scone by doing your generative journal as your morning routine. Before you check your phone, before you check your email, you get up, maybe you go to the washroom for a second and you do your statements. Or if you prefer to do it before bed or whenever it fits into your schedule, your homework for day 3 is to one third-person statement, one thing you would like to have happen in the world. Mary gets her dream job. Paula makes $100,000 in the next 12 months. Steve becomes the star of the community soccer team. Whatever you want to happen out there, one statement, third person, but your name, not I do this, but your name does this, as though it's a story about a character. Because it is a story about a character, you are that character, and you can make your own story. So you're going to do one third person statement, something you want to happen out there, and then one internal statement, an I am statement. I am powerful, I am free, I know what I want. An internal, so one external third person, one internal first person. That is your generative journaling exercise for this Hypno-Energize 5-day challenge. I'm going to sign off. Thank you everyone so much for being here. Day 4, which if you're watching live is tomorrow, Thursday, September 3rd. Day 4 is going to be on the invisible game, which there's no nutshell description of that, but the best way I could nutshell it is, that is about mindset shifts. How you can shift how you're looking at the world and what your implicit assumptions are. This goes hand in hand with generative journaling, but it's a different way that you can shift your perceptions, shift your mindset to get better results in the world. We're going to talk about the invisible game on day 4, and on day 5, I am going to show you, I'm going to give you the seeds of self-hypnosis. There are certainly much bigger, grander programs that we can do if we have more time, but remember I said 1 minute or less. So on day 5, I'm going to give you the seeds of self-hypnosis, something very short that you can do to begin locking those programs in, unlocking the vast, enormous power of your own unconscious mind. So please do check back for those. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the comments. Don't forget to join the group, and you can always get in touch with me personally at MishaTuesday.com. Thank you everyone so much for being here, and I hope to see you in the next video. Make your wishes happen.